as consumers of this capitalism market, the consumers have lost a lot of trust in the businesses. Good morning. Hello, and welcome to the Tech Lab Brief, your heartbeat of technology. And reminder that reports of the machines taking over, greatly exaggerated. Today is August the 6th, 2026, and this is your Tech Lab Brief. Today on the Tech Lab Brief, the missing science of AI. On our previous brief, we talked about the bubble, the AI bubble, with all these financial players playing the finance game of inflating this AI bubble and playing their financial games to win and lose the finance game, the buying and selling of shares and stocks to impact the markets as they do. We spent the most time on our last brief going down that supply chain of understanding where the value is at each link of the AI supply chain. And then we arrived at the question of where's the value? And then we talked about watts, that we said it's economic output per watt, right? Economic output per watt spent to use the AI. And as we kept going, we landed on the conclusion that it's about the demand, that if we build the thing but nobody wants it, then it doesn't actually generate economic output. And that ultimately there's a necessity for any AI-based business, not just AI, but any business, to have a good balance between offering a good product and marketing it well. So on that note, that brings us to the missing science of AI. We can know every little technical thing about how AI works and all the way down to the silicon that it runs on and the economics of running that infrastructure. But without actual applications that make me feel like, hey, this is actually useful, we're not going to get there. So what brings us to our first story of OpenAI's Summer Creator Club. TechCrunch reports that OpenAI brought creators to an upstate New York retreat for product classes, farm-to-table meals, and activities including beekeeping. OpenAI called it education-led. The backlash shows what happens when distribution and trust arrive in the same package. Yeah, so OpenAI hosted this retreat for content creators over the last weekend, and it was activity-filled. And they're hoping that the output of this is more interest in OpenAI's products and creators as product teachers and cultural translators. And this is the market that we live in today. Online influencers are the primary way that marketing gets done. So it makes sense that OpenAI is investing the marketing budget into swaying content creators. But is that really the way to play the game? So what OpenAI does over this weekend is that they gain reach for content creators. And then in that small time period, the creators give their trust. And there's also an exchange for, let me treat you well over the weekend, and then we'll promote your products. And of course, the broader audience is seeing right through this. Even though there was backlash from the general public, that doesn't necessarily mean that OpenAI's investment here is a success or a failure. It's just what the reaction of the basically social media has shown is that an actual representation of the market demand and the dynamics, TBD. So it arrives us at the conclusion that reach can be borrowed, but trust cannot. Does trust come in the form of reduced prices? Well, let's see. Intelligence got cheaper. OpenAI cut Luna's API price by 80% and Terra by 20%. And while paid subscription prices stayed the same and those models began consuming fewer credits, lower costs can remove a barrier to trial, but it cannot make the result useful. So OpenAI's ChatGPT has 3 tiers now, right? There's Sol, Terra, and Luna. Sol is their highest intelligence, Terra is their balanced, and Luna is their cheapest. The price of these Luna tokens have gotten really cheap, and there's OpenAI credits that help you that encourage users to just try it out and make use of it. So just by lowering the prices, is that necessarily going to make the product better? And yes, this 3-tiered intelligence system that OpenAI put out is an interesting take. But is that what's going to really drive the demand? So just because OpenAI improved their prices, does that mean they're winning the AI boom? Let's see. Anthropic leads the spend signal. In RAM's June spend data, Anthropic reached 42.4% business adoption, while OpenAI stood at 39.5%. It's not complete market share or retention data, but it is closer to behavior than launch attention. So Anthropic's winning the race. I mean, if you look at these numbers, that these numbers have been provided courtesy of RAM. They're a business expense tracking platform, and they've aggregated all their customer business expense data. They've basically provided us the insight of the difference of comparing how much AI spend is going on between OpenAI and Anthropic. Turns out that Anthropic is winning the race by 3%. Does that really mean anything? Does that mean that the customers, they've captured the market? Or is this just a little bit of a summit on the climb? And the key word that we're looking for here is retentions. The public evidence here measures exposure, price, and spending, but it does not connect any of them to long-term retained use. AI companies are getting better at generating demand before the industry has agreed on how to prove durable value. Durable value, right? On my notes here, there's a really great link of market capture, and it starts with attention, which is what OpenAI did. They got people to notice. They brought content creators to, a few steps behind, but they're looking to make ways to bring more attention to their products. Next step, understanding, right? Once you have someone's attention, then maybe you can get them to understand, right? So OpenAI held this retreat and got their attention and put them in a position to want to understand. But then after the understanding comes the trust, right? Once I understand, well, does the trust immediately follow the understanding? So there's a question mark that we have to place, right? In this marketing process, because there's so many times in our lives, right? We watch a commercial, we can understand what it does, but are we actually trusting what that commercial is saying? And there you have a major market gap. But then after the trust, let's say that there's trust, that the trust comes into play though. What comes next is what we'll call a trial, just giving it a shot. If there's a trust developed between the business and the consumer, almost like new Apple products coming out every year, then there's a willingness to try it out. I'll at least go to the Apple store and try out the iPhone, right? But will it actually do anything for me? Well, there's your next step. Value. Did the product improve a real outcome, right? By using this phone, by trying it out, did I actually get something out of it? Well, I just got this value by just trying it out, try out the value. And then, my friends, if that lands, if that connects, if it makes sense, maybe, just maybe, we can acquire this missing science. Retention. Retention is where the marketing becomes science. So you have all these little steps in between, right? Attention, understanding, trust, trial, value, retention. As we start to bring our brief to a close, we'll take the scientific method of marketing that we just deliberated on and apply it to BK Tech Labs. The media explains the world. The product has to give the audience a reason to perform inside it, to act, perform. The product has to give the audience a reason to act inside it. So here at BK Tech Labs, we have developed a suite of products. Up right now is our first app, Barcade, looking to help users understand AI better through strategic board game reasoning evaluation, but they're just words. Do I even have your attention as I'm trying to explain what this app is? And then we can go through the other ones, WeChat, Tech Lab Brief. And those are the big three that we'll start with right now. There's a fourth that's in the works, applying this whole chain of marketing principles. Also on the engineering side, attention, understanding, trust, trial, value, attention. It's good. That's a good chain. So basically something about applying the same principles to ourselves, right? Here we are on the journey to try to figure this out. We have the apps. We brought it to a point where maybe it's demonstratable, where we felt like it was demonstratable. We tried it out. It didn't work. I guess there's a trial stage. There's some establishment of trust in what we're doing here, or what this is, and what's being done here. But, understanding, attention, understanding, trust, right? I think that's probably the major first three steps in this game we're trying to play, and what everyone's trying to play. But in the AI race right now, that's the next stage. Trust is the missing link. The gap between understanding, and trust is still huge because as consumers of this capitalism market, the consumers have lost a lot of trust in the businesses, has lost a lot of trust in what they see on the screens. So before we can get to talking about trial and value and retention, we need to first figure out this trust puzzle. And if I read the notes here, back to the missing science of AI, right? Attention can be purchased and trials can be subsidized, but retention must be earned. Which brings us back to the importance of trust. A retreat can create attention. Price cuts can create a trial. Spend data can suggest adoption. But none alone proves importance. Now, the question I leave you with is, what product would you notice if it disappeared tomorrow? And this is your Tech Lab Brief. We hope you enjoyed our cast just as much as we did preparing for it. Join us for the next one as we continue our story from the discussion of demand generation to trust. Please let us know what you think about our show in the comments or the chat below. Consider a membership to support our platform. And again, thank you for tuning in. And now, your minute of Zen. All right, lock in. Have a great day. See you next brief. Bye now.